The story begins with a man who is shirtless and full of blood. He says that all this is the fault of an object, a kind of pearl that he holds in his hand. He is exhausted. He says that everything is the fault of the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is an object which makes it possible to fulfill a single wish. It is then that it opens the mouth that he begins his house sentence, and not the end of what he says right after we are in an office or employee's work. We see in particular a man who seems to be the hero of this story. This employee in question goes to his boss and asks him something. He asks if he is allowed to go home this evening. Early at home, his boss asks him why he wants to go home instead, but when he poses this question, the employee does not answer. He looks a little embarrassed and in a bad position. Then he says that he has finished his work, so he would like to return his boss 7, even if he knows that the reason for which he wants to return is not this one. He knows he's hiding something from her anyway. The employee thanks him. All the other employees in the office are a little surprised. They go and talk to the chef about everything and ask him if it's really a good idea to let them go earlier. They notice that he has a lot changed lately, but the chief tells them all to shut up. He tells them all to stop meddling in what don't look at them. He even asks most of them to go home even if they have a meeting. He is really pissed off. Meanwhile, the employees say he's being too nice to Kim, but the chef seems to know something which the others are not aware of. Right after we see Kim, the employee who left earlier from the office at the florist asks him if he is there for his wife's birthday. He replies that yes. A bit later he goes home. Then he speaks alone. All the lights were off, but he acts as if accompanied. He begins to prepare the meal for 3 people. He puts a picture of his wife and daughter in front of him and starts saying he's not as talented as her. He then goes to take a shower and goes settling at his desk with his notebook is like his diary, and in this famous diary he writes addressing his wife as if he was waiting for an answer. He said that as he had promised her he would rather leave work today. We understand then why he was embarrassed to ask this earlier at the office. He then writes in his diary asking if the soup was good even though it was not on par with his wife's. He also says he brought her the flowers she loved. At the same time, we see television news about a serial killer who is on his 12th victim. It is assumed that his wife and his daughter were just killed. It seems like it's his memories intertwining with reality, and while he's writing in his newspaper he repeats the same sentence: I want to hear your answers. I want to hear you. I want to hear them. I want see you. I want to please you. Shouting. After a while he calms down and thinks to himself that it really is a stupid. It's not as if what he was doing was going to change anything. He then starts to turn the pages of his diary on which he had a lot scribbled during his madness, and we look at him. He is shocked. He wonders what the hell is that. Characters he wrote are flying away, and suddenly he picks up his diary and sees that he is now completely empty. Everything he had written a few minutes ago and for a very long time has disappeared, and when he turns the pages he sees something even stranger. He wrote something there that he hadn't written himself, something that had appeared like that, and it was noted. You can see them again, your wife and your daughter. He is completely stunned and does not know not even how to react. The notes he has been writing for 6 months have disappeared. Help. The front page, a new narrative, featured a full story that he had never heard of. He thought about throwing it away because it scared him, but didn't not had the courage to do it. And in what was in the diary, everything that was written was true, and if what is about his daughter and his wife is also true, it means he can really see them again. There is a glimmer of hope in his eyes, and in the newspaper he read what was written. It says that tonight at 10 p.m. he will go to a world parallel. He waits while looking at his clock, and at 10 p.m. sharp, everything turns around before his eyes. His whole apartment begins to transform as if gravity is reversed. He does not understand what is happening. When he resumes consciousness, he is in front of a mysterious place, and he wonders what he is doing here. It is a forest, and many other people around him are In the same situation, everyone asks themselves all possible and imaginable questions, but who then realizes that what was in his book was true. It was not a simple joke, but the truth. A message then appears from the forest. It is as if this world could talk to them, and this message says, then the tutorial is going to start. People are wondering if it's a sound game. Side that does not remember the newspaper and what he had read there that said that the parallel world will present itself as a game. The game continues from there. Speak and explain the instructions to them. He then tells everyone to summon a weapon, and all the people who do not will not be decided in a minute, will be given a sword. Everyone is obviously perplexed and wonders if what is happening to them is real. Full of people, and even Kim directly thought and wished to summon a gun, but the newspaper explained that these people received bows instead. And why did they receive bows instead of firearms? The reasons are not explained. Maybe this world is not developed enough yet, or the game just forbids this kind of weapon in the world. Then tells them without any transition that men say the players must gather to defend themselves, which reminds me of what he read in the newspaper. The newspaper explained that people stunned by the appearance of monsters he had never seen before could not even move, who only says to himself, whatever this diary of the writings of the future or something else, his world is not neither here nor elsewhere. The fight against the Vicent men started, and it was not very dangerous, but it was especially the pervasive fear that was problematic. No one wanted to fight a moving corpse, but who immediately took his sword from me. If he has a chance to see his wife and daughter again, he will grab it. And he started to behead Bai's men, as they are only eliminated when their heads fall off. And he even received a bonus from the game, as he is the first to have killed a zombie, and as these statistics have evolved, he can now kill the kissed men faster. Each time he eliminates it, he receives an experience point, and all these statistics have even been increased by 2 points. He continues to destroy them all without any difficulty, while the other players nearby have a lot of trouble. Some get bitten, and others can't kill them all at once, but that's not the time to look away for Kim. He has a goal and has no time to deal with others. The battle continues, and in the end he eliminated 58 Bai's men alone again, as he is the one who killed the most. He gained 100 skill points, and his weapon is now sharper, which amazes himself, as he is not as tired as before. He tells himself that it must be thanks to the experience point he has accumulated. The information suddenly arrives in his brain. He is impressed how much it looks like a video game. He has already improved all these statistics, including magic. He is happy because the newspaper explained that the most important was the magic points. But for the moment he continues to improve his strength because it will be more useful to him at the beginning of their side. All the other screams and want answers. Why are they here? And what is the goal? The game announces while there has 198 survivors, and that the second part of the tutorial will start soon, and this time the rules are different. In 4 days, only the 100 people with the most achievement points will survive. The players do not really understand what these rules correspond to. The game adds, while the others except the 100 people will all die. Keep well that in mind. All the players start to rebel, and refuse only have to enter, but the day responds that there will only be 100 survivors, and it's all that takes. The opportunity for me to observe the situation, and now confirms that he is the only one who has obtained a newspaper. The others do not know nothing of this world. The game then explains that there are 2 ways to earn points. The first is to venture into the world and kill the monsters in it. And the second way is much simpler. If you kill someone, you will get half the points he has. All players are shocked. The game announces as the second part of the tutorial begins, and that's when all the players look at each other with a monstrous look, as if they were facing game. They all say to themselves that they don't need to fight the monsters. It is enough that there are simply no survivors, and the story is settled. He draws all their swords. It's kill or be killed, but who gives them to me? tells everyone that if they really want to survive, they just have to go defeat monsters, but no one agrees with that. They say he is the only to be good at killing them, in fact, which is only said for the second part of the tutorial. It's better if there is many people whose it is better to avoid that the others kill themselves in the end. Who leaves me and leaves the others behind? He asks him, where is he? Goes, who answers me while he will survive, who finally leaves alone in the forest to try to go and defeat monsters. And as he advanced, he heard a voice behind him, which he called it was one of the girls in the group who had run after her. Shows up and says her name is Jinjio, who doesn't really understand the situation and asks him what's going on, and she answers him, asking if she can follow him, but without any hesitation, who replies that he doesn't want to. She insists and says that it is always better to be together than alone. She is sure to be able to be useful to him, who then asks her if she has at least killed a zombie alone, but in view of her reaction, he says no, she was probably hiding behind the others while he was doing the work. It's her choice if she chooses to survive like this, but it won't be with him. Of course, this girl's goal was to find a strong guy and hide behind him, but who didn't get caught. He has a clear goal in mind: find his wife and his daughter, and nothing will prevent him from accomplishing this. We see again who has me a little later in the end, who wasted my time on what he was planning to do. 3 days after the end of the tutorial, someone already discovered the dungeon he learned about in the book. He was found by someone that's adventure him near a cliff. He knew that for improve as quickly as possible, this was the solution for someone of his level who has just arrived in the game, and the dungeon was there, a little opening in a cliff. This opening barely allowed a person to crawl through like that. Me was close to his location. He was able to follow the people who entered inside before him. Once at inside, the environment is totally different from what there was in the forest. The monsters he encountered in the dungeon were a lot stronger than the simple monsters of the beginning. He even said to himself that if he had come to the dungeon on the first day, he would maybe dead. He must now pay attention to each of his actions and gestures, because although he is his diary to help and guide him, he is not, however, invincible. So he must be careful even if he does not face monsters that seem overpowered in any way. What is certain is that people who go to the dungeon are guaranteed to quickly become stronger than anyone else. The dungeon is quite spacious inside, and suddenly a monster swoops down on our hero. It was a giant carnivorous insect, and he was very tenacious, but who still managed to eliminate him without too much difficulty. He won 10 points of success by killing this monster, while during the tutorial it gave only 1 point. Now the rewards attributed are different according to the places and the monsters. He continues his way in the dungeon and continues his fights. He gradually feels his stats increased, even if it was unpleasant at first. Now here is used: the deeper it goes into the dungeon, the more different the monsters are. Now he sees moss, so he suspects the moss ants are been there. He explains that ants are weaker than carnivorous insects, but they never move alone, which makes that they are more dangerous. In the end, they arrive in front of him, and he thinks that it is abused that there are so many, but he notices that in the end they were attracted to him because of a piece of bread he had in his pocket, so he throws it away, and the ants change their target. So who benefits from it? He begins to destroy them all by attacking them from behind. He manages to eliminate 3 of them before the other ants notice that they are attacked and do on him. He kills more, but had not noticed that behind his back there was an ant attacking him. She does some damage, but he does not stop the fight and continues to destroy them. Finally, even if the fight was very complicated, he manages to defeat them all. And it was not easy. He sits next to their corpses and receives his achievement points for defeating them, and during let him rest from this tiring fight, he receives a message from the game telling him that he has won the strength skill, and envelope of the foam ant. This skill allows him to possess the strength and the hard skin of the foam ants. He asks him if he accepts the skill. Of course, our hero accepts, and he is even very happy because it is the first time he has faced ants of foam, and he has already obtained a skill because he will not take it until later. But to obtain a skill in the tutorial, it's very complicated, and he acquired a rank skill in the second part of the tutorial. It's a very good sign, and in addition, if the skills increase as he masters them, then the skills become an invaluable power. After that, he thinks he should take a look at the newspaper because tomorrow there's news. People should enter the dungeon. He wonders who these people are, but when he tries to turn the page of the diary to know more, he is incapable of it. It seems that he cannot yet read the rest. He is once again asking himself questions about this diary. If it is from the future, who sent it to him, and why did he send it to him, and what does he pass in the pages that cannot turn? There are also sentences about the Holy Grail, but he wonders what that it is. On the other side, we see a man who is frustrated. His name is Du Yong, and he is second in the ranking in the video game. Of course, he is second behind our hero Kim, and Du Lon is wondering who Kim is, and we see next to him a girl who comes to answer him and tells him it's obvious it's the guy who killed the first monster. This girl is the one we saw previously and who wanted following Kim. Looks like she changed target. Duong is very pissed at him, and the girl next to him explains that she knows where he went. The man then asks her where is he, but she replies that if she tells him Soft will have to give him the guy who is by Bloody Earth. Actually, Sweet happened a second, didn't by killing monsters but by killing the other humans next door who were with him, and so he recovers each time half of their points. Du Young then says to the girl that the man who is on the ground, and to her she can kill him and recover his points, so that's what she does. She kills him, and that's how he intends to survive. On the other side, we find Kim, who is still in the dungeon. He continues to eliminate the ants that he manages to beat more and more easily each time. These statistics increase, so the following fights are simpler currently, which takes an average of 20 points in all these statistics, and at 1675 success points. It's been almost 2 days today since the tutorial has started, and his magic has not increased hugely yet. His magic and lowest stat with 17 points, but for the moment it is enough, and by dint of advancing in the cave he felt that something much more powerful. Suddenly a message from the game tells him that he has finally discovered the boss of this area, the Queen Moss Ants, and when he goes to see what she looks like, he was frightened. She is absolutely huge. He can't even believe this thing can be called an ant. Now he has to be more careful than ever considering the monster he's done to him. He thinks about the solutions that he correlated from the front would be suicide, especially since there are a lot of moss ants too. Side, and who still does not know anything about the queen ant, but unfortunately he does not have time to continue his training before returning because today he knows that people will enter the dungeon, so he can't risk being robbed. The boss, she will give a lot of points, success, and skills they absolutely must get, so he has to defeat her himself. And while he was thinking about different strategies he could use, he receives a message from the game. The game explains that they will receive rewards according to their ranking. Since Kim is the first, he receives the better rewards, in this case 3 days of food and 8 points of statistics randomly distributed. Now he is stronger, and he has food to use as bait for foam ants, so he tells himself it's time to go. He throws his bread, and as soon as the ants are attracted, they eliminate them with a sword stroke from behind. But the queen, as for her, hasn't moved yet. It looks like she's using her ants as pawns. Kim doesn't give up. As far as he is, some more thousands, he will face them all. He is totally surrounded by ants, and totally exhausted, he continues to fight and takes damage from the ants. Indeed, they are far too much for him, so some attack his feet without them realizing it, but luckily he has gained the strength and envelope skill of the ants more early, because without it he would be dead. And he thinks that if a simple rank skill is so useful, the skill he will get by killing the queen will be amazing. After his hard fight, he finally manages to eliminate all the ants of foam and iron. Finally face the queen. There remains only their fight begins. We see him who makes her face, and now he is much stronger than when he arrived. He is much faster, and suddenly he starts to move. He rushes on the ant at an impressive speed, as if it were teleporting. The next second we sees with his sword planted his weapon in the head of the ant. But we are back on the others who have just entered the dungeon without knowing if he defeated the ant for good or not. Snuggly, who is accompanied by the girl and other guys, is pissed to have to come to this rat hole, but the girl at next to him explains that for sure someone came here before them, because obviously all the corpses are left monsters that who already killed me. Do you think that even if there is more reward when you eliminate a human, Kim who killed all these monsters must having a lot of doom points, and therefore in a hurry to meet him because he wants to kill him? He knows that Kim, who stayed there for a long time, had to get tired from fighting his monsters, so he will take advantage of it, because even if the reign of points of successes of experience that he sweet thinks he will be able to whine, and so all these points and the first place will be his. We can clearly see the difference in method, which explained precisely who would rather tackle the monsters and dungeon to get stronger on your own, or take the easy choice and eliminate other humans to get their point back at final. After Kim's very long fight against the moss ants and the queen, they managed to get out of it and defeat the boss. Queen ant is dead. Is now moss ants will no longer spawn in the dungeon. In this regarding the rewards that earned me 250 more achievement points, all of these stats increased by a point, and finally he acquired new skill by defeating the queen ant. This new skill is called solidification, and this skill is activated from magic points are consumed to wrap the user's skin in a membrane. Resisting the force of the membrane will vary depending on the level of magic and mastery of the skill. It is a very useful, and who only knows if he is in a critical situation she will be able to save his life, which is in the end very happy to have made it through all of this as the rewards are going up. However, he adds that there are still more things to come. He then explains that there are three main factors concerning strength in this world. The first is obviously the statistics. They are fundamental, and the people of this world can become a just Superman thanks to the statistics. The second is the skills that you can recover by fighting monsters or dungeons. It's magic elements that allow these serums to hold up. And the third is the objects. They can increase stats just by equipping them, and sometimes they even grant skills. For example, even a simple average human can obtain unparalleled strength by depends on a single object. It is for this reason that the objects are so important. Precisely, the queen swarms protected an object like bumps often do. When he finally found me, the chest that the queen ant was protecting there was deafened. He was extremely happy to have recovered this object. He could not even believe it. But before we are told what this mysterious object is, we are back with the other group of people who continue to go around the dungeon. There sees that there are more and more ants, and therefore say to themselves that they have almost arrived given the enormous quantity. And when he finally arrives in front of Duyu is shocked. He does not even know what to say. He stops advancing and says to the others of his group to wait here. He continues the journey alone and remains silent in front of what he is seeing. He sees the dead queen ant on the ground and wonders what is that stuff, and while he was still shocked, he comes face to face with Kim, who is also surprised. The two face each other, and this look of a strange look there is even behind Du Yong, the other people of his group, which is very surprised to me because he should not already be there. He thinks it's still too early for them to find the dungeon, and when he sees the rest of the group arrival, he notices that the girl he had failed at the beginning of the tutorial is with them, so he quickly does the bond and understands that it is because of her who found it immediately. Who does not say then that he made a mistake. He change the future by acting not the way the diary writes. It seems Kim can't believe anymore blindly the newspaper. From now on he must be more careful and know that these acts will have consequences on the future. But while Kim was thinking about it, he was not very cheerful. He does not even know the number of ants he killed, and he wonders how and what he was able to do this on his own. And his plan, which was to killing Kim, who would be tired, falls into the water because he doesn't look tired at all. Silly then starts to figure out how he was able to do all that. Those stats actually increased by constantly hunting monsters, which makes him much stronger than he expected. And in the end he was able to defeat all his monsters and increase his stamina by therefore avoiding fatigue. Who then goes in front of him and says to him, "Move aside." Do Young is surprised and does not really know how to react. We feel that he is annoyed by the situation, but in the end he deviates and answer, "Of course I'm not going to stop you." All his plan finally failed. So look at the dungeon, leaving quietly. The girl then goes to see Do Young and shouts at him, "It's not what which was planned. Why did he let her get away?" But Do You tells her that she hasn't understood yet. He adds that he don't know what found me in this dungeon, but what is certain is that he is certainly not an idiot at all. Chance, who was seized with peace, and we can see that Kim is absolutely not there to laugh. Silly then understands his mistake and why who came to me to fight. While he was quiet, he shouldn't have focused only on getting the hit points. He should also have increased his statistics by killing monsters, because even if they allow him to survive for the moment, in the end the points of success will not be sufficient. On the other side, we see all the others again. Humans who have been teleported to this world. They are all fighting, screaming, who don't want to die. They are killing each other contrary to what that Kim had advised them, because of course killing others to survive is not the right solution. It's now the end of the test, and there are 148 survivors. The game announces that the people who failed will be eliminated and that the other 100 survivors will move on to the next stage depending on the success points that have recovered it. We suddenly see full of humans who teleport one after the other, and we see the distress of those who have not all been selected. The selected names will be devoured by the monsters of the tutorial. The second after we see Kimki open again eyes in a totally different room. He is with all the other survivors, but he notices that it is the first time he sees the people who are with him. He thinks it's a good thing that the Do You group is not there. The game announces that the third trial finally begins. He explains that there are 3 doors that appear in front of a red, a blue, and a white for the first. There are 10 people for the second, 5, and for the last one, and the tutorial does not will resume once all people have entered one of the doors. The game explains that although the red door allows the passage of 10 people, it represents the greatest difficulty, and it will be difficult for them to survive. The blue door is not as dangerous, it's quite easy, and the white door allows you to immediately skip the tutorial people, then run towards the white door. But the game explains that the choice will be made according to the points of success. Whoever has the most points will choose the door first. Then asks Kim to come forward, and contrary to what all the world thinks, he does not choose the white door but the red door. Everyone is shocked, but he now say that if the first 10 take the red, everyone could survive, and when the second player is called where he chooses the white door, everyone calls him selfish, but he says he has no proof that the people after him choose red, so he prefers to choose safety, and for proof all the others following participants take the blue door to try to have the best chance possible. Yes, he will therefore see who Met tells him that he made an absolutely stupid choice, but who does not answer him that he really thinks it is for this reason. Yes does not understand, who then tells me that he probably thinks he made the right choice, but that's not the case. He would have done better to choose the blue door. The game announces that everyone has made their choice. 1 person at white door, 5 in blue, and the rest in the red. Game explains to them that they have 10 minutes to enter their door. One of the men who has the red door tells himself he can't go through it, he's going to die for sure, so he tries to run to the white door and pass by this one. They rush towards the door, but before entering inside he is yes the hatch then, and the insult he tells him that he shouldn't have done that. He starts to beat him up, but while he was beating him, Naku just stopped me. He says enough is enough. He says this man has to pass the tutorial with him through the door. Red when he holds his arm where he is shocked at how strong Kim yes he was 12th in the standings, but he didn't think there would be such a big difference. The game announced when he stay 5 minutes. Yes, wish them good luck and then enter his door. She then closes behind him. He does not remains in the end that the 4 of the red door. Kim tells them that it is time for them to go there. 4 of the red door enters So Fin, who asks him if he is coming or not, but the man refuses. He is the one who got beat up by Will. He says he refuses to die in this hell he's not expecting and walks in. Finally, in turn, the door closes behind him. The man continues to cry in his corner and wonders why and what he has to die like that. And when the 10 minutes are up, the man sees flames coming around him. He is shocked and then dies screaming in pain. Back at Kim, we see that he and his group were teleported to a village. The village is rather quiet and very empty. The girl and the man from her group find Kim after a few moments, so there are only 3 trying to pass this test. They observe a little around. Kim asks them their name, then the girl says her name is Ingi and the man Ing, and while he got to know Kim yells at Jingix, he tells her that he killed someone to get here. He sees the stains of blood on her clothes and says she probably not from a freak. And just starts stuttering and says that no, it's something else, but that says that it doesn't matter if someone is killed or not, a coward is better. That an idiot. Aingami is totally shocked and does not know how to react. The game then speaks as said that he will announce the instructions for the 3rd stage of the tutorial for the red door. This 3rd stage of the day radish, which tells me to others that it is better to stick to the rules for the moment. The game explains that monsters will appear in this village twice per day. Monster spawn times are not fixed. When monsters will start spawning, they must defend themselves, and if the rock in the center of the village breaks, then they will have failed the tutorial. He therefore understands me that they are in a defensive position and that it will not be to order to find the monsters. The game adds that there must be at least 1 survivor in the village. In case no one survived in the village, on nearest survivor outside will be transported here and out of the village. That's perfectly safe to me. Shocked when he learns that, he says to himself that necessarily they will not be able to stay together, because otherwise it is obvious that someone is going to run away. The game announces that the 3rd stage of the tutorial has started, which then offers me both others to first go to the center of the village so they will see what the stone looks like and protect it in case of invasion of monsters. Advancing with a very tense face, which does not know that this stage will certainly not be easy. When Ingi and Jinjix were walking towards the center of the village, he asks them a question that will they do eventually. Will they stay here and fight, or will he rather escape? Ingi and Jews are a little surprised by the question. Ingi, being a little hesitant, answers that she does not know if they can survive if they fight, because it's already supposed to be a tough test for 10 people, but then knowing that there are only 3 of them, it's suicide to go like that. But who only answers me when the game says that it will be hard with 10 people? It was probably just to confuse them. Ingi does not understand. He explains that there must be at least 1 person in the village, and as said before, the area is on the outside from the village, so in a way it makes sense. Even if at the start there is 10 people who integrate this part of the tutorial, it is likely seems that at least 1 person would run away, and this so no one would let others fight against others and protect the rock in the middle of the village. And well, obviously if a person seems to be abandoning the others little by little, everyone will start to go away. Gradually, in the end, it is inevitable that the tutorial takes place with very few people, and who tells me that he's sorry to suspect them, but he thinks the two of them would certainly have had that kind of thinking, and we can see from their faces that's what he thought. He wanted to leave the group to save himself, but I insult. Replies that even if he flees, it will not change anything, because in the end, if those who remain in the village are killed by the monsters, he will be teleported to the village in turn, so running away will only weaken the forces of the group. That confirms what I just said. Jews, they must fight all together. And he even asks himself the question, is that the situation is as simple as there are only 3 of them, none of whom would dare to leave as there are so few of them. Looks like they are the perfect band in terms of numbers, but despite all that, who wants me to take advantage of it to kill monsters and become stronger here? But when he says that, Ingy gets angry because she says it's not a game, they are really gonna die. While she was talking, the floor starts shaking. The tremors alert Kimmy's group, warns them. He tells them to stand close because the monsters back, and we just see a monster that appears trophies in the ground because of earthquakes. These are demonic goblins, and they are in huge numbers. Bungy and Ion just are totally scared, but Humi tells them to get closer to the rock and protect it from the monsters, and suddenly Kim gets into position and prepares to fight. As in his previous fights, he uses his impressive speed to rush on the monsters in front of him and starts eliminating them one by one. Juice and Ingy are totally amazed in front of Kim. They don't even know what to say in the face of such a power. But while he watched fighting on his side of the little goblins have started attacking them, they have to be careful. He is also starting to fight who is trying to keep an eye out for them as well, because he doesn't know if they are able to hold on. But while he tries to watch if the other 2 are fine, goblins keep attacking him. They are very numerous, and there is even one of the goblins attacking behind his back. And he knows he won't be able to dodge this attack, so he decides to use the skill consolidation. This skill creates a shell around its body and protects it, but it also consumes its magic quickly. Anyway, the goblin's attack was completely parried and did no damage. Hakim, he thinks that this skill he gained against the queen ant is really useful, but it has enormously tired, and he still sees these 2 comrades are in very bad shape, so they rush help before the rock was destroyed. In the end, the first monsters were eliminated, and it was harder than what he thought. The 2 are sitting against the rock. Ingis is not injured. Malinchi took an attack at the shoulder. That doesn't tell him not to worry. These stats are higher than average, so with a little rest she should be better. With a simple bandage she should easily get out of it. And that, think about the situation, there are still 19 waves of monsters left, and if the situation gets worse he will probably have to fight alone. But for the moment he just offers them to take a little rest. A little later Ing come to, who puts thanks, who doesn't really understand why he says he thanks him for having them, and Kim on his side is always suspicious and asks him if he expects something from him, but Ing answers that no, he feels just the need to thank him, but he still continues to look energized at Kim, who then tells him to say what that he hides. Ing just then starts to shake and even to cry. He says that compared to what Kim had said everything at the time, he didn't do it on purpose. He didn't kill other people on purpose. He said he didn't want to not kill him, but it was a man who attacked him first, so he just defended himself. Kim then said to himself that he judged him a little too early. He says that this boy looks young, so he will try to be a little nicer to him. And while he was chatting, who looks at me around and notices something. C&J, she has disappeared. The 2 started looking for her, but after a while they still did not find her. Ing asks if she has really fled, and who replies that since she is no longer in the village where the fled is, he says that she was hurt, so she was probably scared to die, and she must have told herself that somehow that puts to get them to pass the tutorial, so she wants to take the opportunity to be quiet and not take any Risk I and fairly say that it is a very bad choice because there is a huge difference. Now it is not very confident, but who tells me that in any case they cannot be sure of the situation given that it is not with the Mayan Jews is very stressed and wonders how and what they will do now, but who answers me that it's very simple, they will just have more monsters to hunt. ING don't understand how and what can be so relaxed when they are in a very delicate situation, but who answers me that worrying will not change much to the situation. It is better to relax while the monsters are not there yet. By against, he specifies that even for him it will be impossible to protect the rock standards alone against all the monsters. That will happen, but I tell him not to worry about that side because he does not intend to flee in all the case. After a long silence, Salt takes the floor again and asks a new question. He asks him, what will it pass when the rock which is behind it breaks, and which simply answers me that they will have failed at the tutorial. So ING rest another question, what will happen when they fail the tutorial, and who me responds by still being contracted that they will most certainly die. I inject then a big sigh. He'll either be near the rock when they are both sitting down, which tells me ING try to deal with 10 monster, but he responds being shocked that he is unable to deal alone with Die Goblin, who tells him that on his side he manages to beat several dozen, but hey, the comparison between two, not much use telling him to just try to block them so they don't reach the rock, and he will help as best as he can. We see them again a little later when there is a new wave of goblins attacking them. They keep the same strategy that later, I swear, stay close to the rock and try to fend off the goblins while Kim goes to their pursuit and tries to eliminate them. When he observes me and just face them, he thinks he is doing well, better than he expected from his side. Defeating his goblins with the skills he gained previously is quite simple. It's just their number that is a problem for Kim because it's almost impossible to protect all the boulder attack angles alone. It continues to get hit points and increase their stats, which me says that at the moment they are in the period when it is necessary to be the most careful. They must watch over ING because he can't seem to cover his ass on his own, so Kim has to try to help him out until he raises enough in statistics to succeed in defeating this kind of goblins alone, the statistics of which increase quite quickly, even faster than when he was fighting the moss ants. He told himself that choosing the red door was not music. He killed 98, but he didn't gain any skill. While those two continue to discuss, we see on the other side Amy. She is alone, hidden behind a rock, and we see the village in the distance. She is happy because the other two seem to be doing quite well, and so with a little luck she won't even have to fight. She tells herself that running away was the right choice. She tells herself that she would probably be dead if she remained there, but she remains fearful because she does not know if they will die or not in the village, but she says it's not possible. She saw my action and she trusts him, or at least she doesn't no choice but to trust him. Back in the village, we are now on day 4. The two have already made good progress and managed to fend off almost half of the monster waves. As more monster waves appear, it was down to nothing more than demonic goblins, but also other more powerful types of monsters that appear. Die Unfair said he never thought of in his life see such monsters with his own eyes. Kim on his side continues to analyze the situation. He sees that this wave of monsters caused a lot of wounds to his gums. He tries to heal him even if it's not perfect. You have to take a rest as soon as possible before the next wave arrives. I insulate. Thanks. And he also asks him a question. He asks him if he thinks he will survive because at the moment they are from what the game said in a tutorial, and this is only the 3rd step. What comes after this tutorial? Finally, will this tutorial end one day? But who answers me that it worries for nothing. Of course they will survive after it's all over. ING while in any case he can't die now. He has to take care of his brothers and sisters. He wonders if he's eating well or If they go to school on time, and suddenly thinking about all this he starts crying. He says crying that he doesn't want to not die. He doesn't want, he can't afford to die. Not now. He has to go back to see his family. But as he's breaking down, who yells at him? He tells him to pull himself together. He's not going to die this time. There's no way he'll die now. Who tells him he'll take care of him? They are almost there. He then tells her just to rest because they will still have work tomorrow. We now see an infant in his bed. The baby is having a lot of fun and he is laughing. He was on his back and he has just rolled over on the belly. It looks like he is looking at someone. In fact, it was these two parents, and they are happy because that it is the first time that their child moves like that. We recognize the father because it is Kim, the hero of our story. He is surely remembering memories, and precisely his wife was bothering him because who had managed me to take their daughter on video but not her. She was very jealous, and while he was to have fun on their side, we see their child who begins to cry when they carry his daughter to ask her what is it. His wife tells him that she is probably hungry, but he is absolutely amazed by the beauty of his daughter. His wife keeps laughing at him, says their daughter's beauty just go definitely no Kim. But when she sees him closer, she sees his totally playful face. We see that he is totally happy with his wife and his little girl. But the second after, we see the Kim of the present in the same position, but his face is totally different. We see that the death of his daughter and his wife have totally changed him. He speaks with his teammate. He says he was only thinking about the past, and they are currently on the 10th day of the tutorial. Uriel, so they almost got to the end, but strangely no monsters appeared today, which tells me to Jingu that he too doesn't know why, and that it's up to these distressing people to wait like that. I'm unfair, asking his Nrivdi if the game maybe lets them rest a little as it is the last day, but who answers me that it is impossible. This system is far from being as clement. It is necessary that it remains very careful. Both generally there is a wave to noon and another in the evening, and as it is already evening, he wonders if there will be two waves at the same time. I'm unfair. Remember at that time Ingi and says that finally she won't come back, but who doesn't tell her that it's normal that she don't come back after her betrayal. She wasn't going to reappear like nothing happened. While the two are talking, we see behind the rock he starts acting strangely. We even see cracks which are opening. Light even begins to radiate outside its cracks. I and Jews, and which I then feel an earthquake, a huge shock, the startled effect, and when he turns around he sees the rock which almost starts to explode. The two are totally in a panic. ING asks what is going on here, but who does not order him to back down. For the moment they must observe the situation from further away to be able to act. Consequently, as he recedes, the rock cracks more and more. Pieces of the rock even begin to fall. When they are far enough, they finally turn around. They observe the rock completely cut in half. He also receives a message from the game that the jump on the rock has been broken. When he sees it was a jump, and just ask Eve Rocker was really a portal, but Kim, who continues to observe and analyze the situation, replies that it is not a portal. He even says induced look, and when he looks at the side of the rock he sees a figure coming out of it very quickly. ING and Kim are totally shocked at what they are seeing. They even get a game alert message. The message says that the monster that was sealed by the rock has been released. The boss, the demonic lich monster, has been released. We see then the turbo scary monster in front of our two protagonists. The monster looks like a living dead and is made only of bones. He has red eyes, and in the center of his head a kind of luminous stone which puts his gums scared. They didn't expect to fight such a powerful monster even for the last day. Who told me to Jingu to stay focused no matter what, despite everything. You don't know how to react. He asks Kim what they are supposed to do. Ask him, then try to buy him some time. Juice is scared. He does not want to approach the boss, but who tells me that he does not speak of the boss, who does not want me to take care of all the skeletons behind. And when he turns around he sees a gigantic army of armed skeletons says he has no right to die. Not now. Now he faces the tutorial boss. He watches himself every two without either moving for a short while, but suddenly while he was both motionless, they go for it. The fight has finally started. Kim starts as usual, using his impressive speed to attack first. He knows he can have an advantage over such a big monster. He slides under of the boss and attacks him with his sword from below. He manages to cut him at the level of the legs on his side. That he does not can't help him right now. He has to let him deal with the boss for now. He has to focus on his skeletons. When he starts to fight, he uses his skill from the start, the contract skill with the heck he got earlier. His strength and agility increased by 5. Back from Kim's side, we see he managed to show on the back of the monster. Still armed with his sword, he manages to plant in his back, and he tries, like earlier, to totally slice him, even if his sword is small, thanks to all the points he has accumulated since the beginning of the tutorial, which has become very strong to me. We notice this because the boss cries out in pain when the couple loves him with his sword, but it clearly won't be enough to defeat him, as the monster can't do anything when Kim is behind his back. He wants to free himself. He then sees that there are plenty of fairly tall houses in the city. His idea is therefore to rush on it so he can do damage to Kim, who is on his back, without even touching him. When he notices that the monster is speeding towards a house, he says to himself that he is in very bad shape. We see then the huge shock against the house a few seconds later. Next to all the debris that the monster crushing the house, we see Kim. He is seriously injured. He is exhausted by the attack of the monster. He says that he almost died, but then he hears the scream of the huge monster, which is disgusting to me because he thought the monster was going to die from this wound. But when he looks towards him, he sees the wound that made him with his sword. But the wound begins to be luminous, which puts even more amazed when he learns that in fact he can land on the other side. We see Ajashi was coming back to the village, but when she was back, she saw the monster. She hurried to hide behind a house, but what surprised him even more is Kim's level and strength. And she sees Kim, who is still facing the boss, and on her side just continues to fight the army of skeleton. And even if the fight is difficult, they manage for the moment to leave it. Wonder how they could get so strong in the first place. She came here thinking Kim and Jews were maybe dead, but not at all. They are on the contrary stronger than ever. She wonders what she can do. She can't come back like this. Will they forgive her for running away like a coward? She continues to biting her fingers like crazy while she thinks, are they gonna try to kill her? What should she to do? By asking all these questions, we see in the end that his finger is totally bloody. Back on the side from Kim, he is still thinking about how to defeat the boss. If he regenerates every time, how is he to beat him? Even possible to kill him? But despite everything, Kim thinks that he must have a weakness somewhere, but knowing that he can regenerate doesn't help him at all. While he's thinking, he receives a powerful tail blow from the monster. His tail is full of thorns, which I managed to dodge because given its size, it is faster than the big monster. And he tells himself that even if he can recover, he can't do anything about it for the moment, so he will continue to attack him like he was doing so far. And so he attacks him. He will try to find a weakness in his defense or a solution. He just manages to cut off a piece of his tail. He says to himself that he has finally found a solution, but no, a few seconds later it grows back. Does it endlessly regenerate? But despite everything, he can't stop fighting. He must continue until the end. The monster opens his big mouth. Then that Kim is preparing his attack, and when he approaches him, the monster to put a blow to him, of course, who is much faster for me, so manages to dodge it, and he counterattacks right after with a big blow. Sword on the head of the boss. We see that he succeeded in slicing his face in two, and which also touched me. The stone, luminous red that was in the middle of his head, he hadn't intentionally targeted him, but he notices that since he touched him, the monster does not reacts more like before while he watches the monster. I insult Kim to be careful. When he turns the head, he sees a Juice who is protecting him from a huge magic attack, who then asks me Jing if I'm okay. But he is very injured, and we can see that he entered bad posture. In fact, there is one of the skeleton monsters which can use magic in the horde, and when who tries to see if ING can continue to fight on his terms. He wasn't very attentive to the boss he was fighting. He left him aside. It was then that he took a huge tail blow in the stomach. The neck is overpowered, and Kim flies in the air. ING himself, and even surprised. While he is in the air, he finds it difficult to move given the power of the blow, so to avoid dying he is obliged to use his solidification skill. It allows to create a defensive barrier of magic in front of him as well. He manages to seem to attack the monster with his big horns, but despite everything his magic is not overpowered, so who still took damage from me. He is exhausted. He is currently blocked against a wall, and take the opportunity to use a new skill again. This skill is called Life Force, and it allows Kim to regenerate. It's a skill he managed to get during the 5th day of the tutorial, and luckily he got it obtained, because without this skill he would be dead. And precisely there he is in a very good situation, because the monster tried to attack him in the end, which ends up on his head, and he's right in front of the gem that's in the head of the boss, who tells me that usually a gem turns out to be a weak point. So he prepares his attack and thrusts his sword into the boss gem, and the other side we see all the skeletons that were fighting in front of him. He wonders what's going on. A message from the system announces that the boss has been defeated. The Lich Demon has been slain, and so all the skeletons stop moving. ING just starts smiling. He shouts the name of Kim to express his joy, and when he goes to him, he does not see him. He only sees the body of the boss, who is on the ground. He says to himself that it is not possible. He even starts to cry, but after a few seconds, who leaves me his head. He was actually hidden under the bones of the monster. He laughs at him and says he is not dead yet. I curse at him and ask him if he's fine, and who replies that yes, everything? All right, everything is finally over. ING just as usual starts crying, saying they survived his 10 days. He exclaims with joy and says they are alive, but for some strange reason he does not smile, and he has the air on the contrary, frightened by what he sees. And the second after, we see behind Genghis a silhouette, but this doesn't look like a monster but more like a human. ING then stares at the ground with a totally blank stare, like if something dreadful had just happened. We can half see the face of the person who was behind Jinjukes. This person holds a sword in hand, and when we see JNG, he actually has a hole in his stomach. The sword had completely pierced him. When who sees me, he screams very loudly, but it's too late to dodge him. Was still at the level of the boss's carcass. They rush running towards the girl who still has her sword in her hand. It was, of course, Angie, who was waiting hiding behind houses. As soon as the fight ended, she ran on Jinjix to kill him. She doesn't realize what she just did. She really killed someone, and she only notices now that Kim is yelling at her and asking why is killing her, and while Who talks to her, she replies that in any case they were going to kill her, so she just wanted to take precautions herself. Starts going completely crazy and tells Kim that they already killed people, so they were going to kill her, and she repeats constantly that she wants to live. She will always live and not die. With her psychopathic gaze, she tells him that despite everything, they don't know if it's the end of the game, so by killing them she will learn more success points, this which will allow him to survive even longer in the game. Kim even begins to insult him, even though he expected until she comes back without a fight. He didn't think he would go that far, and she continues in her madness, saying that now she is going to kill Kim. She even has her sword and advances towards him when she is about to attack him. Then that Kim is still on the ground, a very quick movement takes place, and the second after, the woman's arm is completely detached from her body of course, who was ready to retaliate against me and was not going to let herself be so easily, doesn't understand what's going on because she thought that who was still hurt because of his fight, but he has managed to use his life force skill at the last moment, and thanks to this skill most of these wounds have disappeared from her side. She has gone completely crazy and does not understand the situation. How can he be that strong as he comes to fight the boss, but who ain't gonna let this go? She just killed his comrade, so suddenly he takes revenge and chops off his head. He is totally serious and did not hesitate a single second. Just after he returns to Ci and Juice, who is still lying on the ground, and asks Kim Silva to die. My strangely, who answers me that he is not going to die. Hakim that until the end he does not stop telling stories. Says to close his mouth. He repeats to him that he said he would not die. He then pours on him a liquid which comes from a vial. The liquid is blue, and when it comes into contact with the gum wound on its belly, a reaction occurs. And Juice himself does not understand what is happening. We are then shown that the vial with the liquid is a great elixir. It is an elixir that is produced at a ratio of 1 in 1,000. It has a reduced effect, but may be an important medicine for vitality. In fact, we finally discover what is the mysterious object he had recovered after having killed the first boss, the Queen of the Ants, which put very happy to have obtained this object because it thought that it could be useful to him if one day he is on the verge of death or in a very uncomfortable situation, but in the end he must use it. Now ING asks what is going on with his body, but who replies him to be careful because he is a real waste to use it, so he must not waste it. ING is amazed because he says that if he is something like that he should have used it rather, but who tells me that SCI had already used it, he would be dead. I insult instantly feels his body is better. He gets up and says he's alive. Who tells him he wasn't telling stories if he said he was not disappointed to have used it now, but then he remembers all his memories for the past 10 days since he met this boy, and they've had a great time together. So he says to himself that from now on he must above all be more careful. I thank him, and he even gives him a hug. Of course he does not understand and asked him he also has a headache. A little later we see them again, and I ask a new question to Kim. He asks if it is unpleasant to kill someone, who asks him if he had also felt the same thing when he too had killed someone, but I insult answers that he was in a much worse state. He couldn't do anything and vomited all over. Who didn't pull himself together and took a deep breath right after there was a new announcement of the game. They finally passed the third test of the tutorial, and they only passed it twice since the girl who was with them died on Thursday. That he is analyzing the results of the tutorial. He congratulates the leader Kim, who had the most points. He will receive additional rewards given that he defeated the boss all of a sudden, which puts much more interesting actually. If they had managed to immobilize the boss for half an hour instead of kill, they would still have completed the tutorial, but of course he was not aware of this rule. Despite everything, he did not won't complain. He's very happy to get extra rewards. He says it's perfect because he was able to become even stronger. He receives increases in his statistics, but what he intrigues a lot, and the 218 chains of art, he doesn't understand what it means. It's like a kind of bracelet that comes to attach to his wrist, but who does not prefer to panic and observe how the situation will evolve in the game. Then tells them to go through the fort near the rock to get into the next tutorial location, and he sees precisely a door in front of which has just opened. The two friends look at each other and say to themselves that it is off again for a new adventure. So the two friends have just passed the door and arrive in another room. When he crosses, he sees next to them another person. It is Will, who has also just passed through the door of his tutorial, who tells him it's been a long time, but Will on his side looks totally lost, asks them how it's possible because Willie Hakim that he just saw each other. ING don't understand how did they just see each other. Kim then remembers something something he had read in his diary. It is true that regardless of the door through which we pass, all the players end all together for the start of the fourth stage. So while he was getting stronger 14 days, he was blocked in time. In truth, 10 days have passed, but he hasn't noticed anything. In the end, he will only have regrets for having chosen this door there. And when you see the room from afar, you can see all the doors that are aligned. And each time the players from different groups and we see more precisely one of the doors or two people come out. And of course, these two people are Fluffy and the girl who made a band with him. And there are only two left in their doorway. We sees there's a lot of blood on their clothes. Who watches me? And he says anyone would assume they walked through the red door, but he finds himself finally asks, and if they really passed it. Also, all the others who were with them were killed. The game then announces that there are 56 survivors, and now he will explain the rules of the fourth step of the tutorial. This fourth step will be a competition by team. From now on, all people near other players will be part of the same team. As a team and individually, they will compete against the survivor of the other tutorials. Victory will be determined by the team that hunts the most monsters and earns the most team points. The group that earns the most team points will advance to the final tutorial. When they hear this, all players rejoice, but the game adds that the losing team will not go no further. The game then explains that to earn team points, it's quite simple. If you enter by the white door and hunt monsters, you will earn team points. However, try enter through the door black, they will be able to increase their statistics and earn individual points. In addition, according to the monsters you hunt and individual points you earn in the black gate, you will receive an item each day in this location, as they will be able to come here with the order carries. The places where they will return will be remembered, and if the team fails due to team points, the top 10 in terms of individual points will continue despite everything we see. Just Wilkie and delighted with this rule. He thinks it's simple. Even if he loses the team fight, he just has to rank in the top 10 individually. It is said that he was ranked 12th out of 148, so to be in the top 10 out of 56 people and easy. And if in addition to that he earns points and objects, there is no reason to go through the white door. But when he looks at the white door, he sees that Kim and John just are heading towards this one. He says to himself that these two are really stupid. They only chain the bad choices. In any case, the fourth part of the tutorial begins, and a moment later we directly see Will, who is being chased by monsters. In effect, from the beginning he is already in a bad position because the monsters are much too strong for him. He has just noticed that he made very bad choices, and while he was running away from the two monsters behind him are cut into where he is surprised that the two monsters suddenly stop running after him. But in done that's whom I in just that happened and killed the two Cyclops, Kim said as the white door led to a hallway. But the black gate is a forest, and I swear replied that it may be because they are on the edge from the forest, so the monsters are quite weak. They are maybe still a bit stronger than the guys who passed the white door on the third stage. When he hears that, where he is mad, and when he looks, Wilkie is behind. He is totally annoyed, and as they are advancing in the forest, ING asks, what is the state of the bracelet that who won me previously? He seemed rather happy. He says that for the moment it's not bad, but the truth is that this object is unfathomable. In fact, it is an evolving object. It absorbs the magic of the wearer and grants great power depending on the magic that is transferred. Attack and defense damage increases depending on the amount of magic absorbed. So it is a very interesting object because in addition it decreases the rate of magic consumption by 20%, so he will be able to use more of his skills which consume magic. On top of that, his attack and his defense will be increased. But who tells me he should join this guy before it's too late? We don't really understand what he's talking about, but we just see a flashback of when the first part of the fourth step of the tutorial ended. There had all the survivors who were back in the room where it all started, and the game announced that it was going to calculate the team points and the individual points of each person. Me, as usual, was the first. I unfair meanwhile was third. The second was on the other hand dying. It seems that he too ventured into the forest. On the other hand, in point term, the teams only Kim and I in games have won any for the moment. All the other players have zero team point. They preferred to focus on personal points when distributing rewards. They received stat points as usual, and who also earned me coins. The game tells them they can exchange their coins for skills or items on the last day. Kim, it is thanks to her diary that the items they can get with the coins are extremely powerful. He doesn't know if they will be better than the chains of ZAR, but he will still try to have as much time as possible. And the game also announces the number of points from the opposite team. They got 28,000 points, while Kim's team only got 3,000 points. Who then announces me to everyone and makes a deal so everyone can survive. Do Young says that he is really curious to see this incredible method to save everyone, but he says he hopes this